Yo, what's going on, party people? Everybody good? Good to see you. Man, my name's Nathan. I'm one of the pastors here. If I hadn't had a chance to meet you yet, consider it official. We are friends. For our online campus that are worshiping with us, we love you. James, let me tell you about this guy. Let me tell you about this dude, James. James was the half-brother of Jesus. Same mom, different dad. Wild story behind that. We'll talk about that later. But was the half-brother of Jesus. Now, you can imagine that having Jesus as your big brother would come with some perks. But having Jesus as your big brother could also come with some pressures. Now, I, being a younger sibling, know what it's like to live in the shadow of an older brother. Now, imagine if your older brother was the most famous person that ever lived. That's a significantly larger shadow. The great thing about being a sibling, this is like just rite of passage for brothers and sisters, is when you are at home and something bad happens, having a sibling means you have someone to blame it on. You can always pass the blame. How do you think that worked out for James? Mary comes in to the den, Jesus and James in there, said, "Boys, who ate the cookies in the kitchen? Told y'all not to eat them. Some of them are gone." James? And James is like, "Not me." And Mary looks at James and said, "What, do you think it was Jesus? Because he's sinless. Do you think he stole the cookies? Do you think he disobeyed his parents? No." It would have been a tough spot for James. He didn't have anybody to blame it on, didn't have anybody to shift the blame on. James, even though when you read this book, you're going to realize, man, James is very high on his big brother, very protected, but he wasn't always like this. In fact, the majority of his childhood, even the majority of James as an adult, and the entirety of Jesus' life, James had a very different opinion about Jesus and his sermons and his preaching and his ministry. In fact, all of Jesus' half-brothers did. In John chapter 7, we read this, and Jesus' brothers said to him, "Leave here." Like, you're at home, you need to leave. Leave here and go to Judea, where all of your followers can see your miracles. You can hear the sarcasm in these guys' voice. You can't become famous if you hide like this. They just thought Jesus was trying to be famous. He's like, well, you need to move to LA or New York. Like, you're not going to get famous here in Nazareth, so why don't you just go ahead and leave home? If you can do such wonderful things, then go and show yourself to the world. Verse 5 says, for even his brothers didn't believe in him. Like, guys that knew him the most did not believe that his sermons were legit, did not believe that he was the Son of God, did not believe that the miracles were real and that they mattered. None of that, as long as Jesus was alive. But something happened one day that radically changed James's life, and his life turned around on a dime. And by the time he wrote the book of James, James was very protective of his brother's reputation. Like, if James were here today, let me tell you something that James is like, we're not going to do this. You are not going to tell people that you're a follower of Jesus and act like and talk like and treat people unlike Jesus would have. Like, that's not going to work. Like, James would call you out in public in a minute if it meant sullying his big brother's reputation and claiming to be a Christian but not acting like Jesus. James is a tell it like it is kind of guy. Over these next few weeks, you're going to realize you are never going to wonder what James thought. You're never going to wonder how James feels. You're never going to wonder, I wonder what James thinks about a certain topic or what his opinion is. He's going to tell it to you. Like, you will never have to doubt that. He will tell you in a hurry. The book of James has 108 verses in it. It takes the average reader, it takes less than 30 minutes to read the whole book. Out of the 108 verses, 54 of the verses are commands. That's how every other verse, James looks at you and says, do it. This is what you need to do. Do this, just do it. Hey, don't talk about it, just do it. Don't just study it, do it. Don't just memorize it, I need for you to do it. Like, this is what I'm telling you to do it. That's James. He was all about that. Now, James is kind of the opposite of the Apostle Paul. Now, when the Apostle Paul wrote, he would write not just what he was telling you, but the Apostle Paul would spend another 17 verses on the why. Let me tell you why to do this and the connection with theology and church history and Jews versus Gentiles, and the why behind and the how and the where. Like anytime somebody asked Paul, when you said that, now why do we believe that? Paul would spend he'd write another 2 chapters explaining to you, and he would answer it in 25 different ways. He would answer your question. If somebody raised their hand to James and said, why do we do that? James is just going to look at you and said, because Jesus said so. Like, why you got questions? Did Jesus say it? Yeah, well then do it. That's your reason. That's your why. You want more than that? Just do it. Like Jesus, that should be enough for you. Like we're here to obey what Jesus said. That's what we're going to do. And so every other verse in the book of James is a command, an explanation, an imperative. This is what we're going to do. If James were preaching a sermon and he had a walk-up song, like if there was a bumper video that played, it would be Toby Keith's song. I need a little less talk and a lot more action. That was James. He's like, that's it, man. Stop talking about it and start doing it. Just do it, okay? No question. Just do it. Got any questions? Oh, yeah, no, you don't need to ask questions. Just do it. Just do what Jesus said today. So James is not afraid to be bold, not afraid to tell you. Sometimes these are things that are going to be hard to hear. Sometimes, man, it just feels like there's a reason why a lot of historians and scholars have nicknamed the book of James the 2x4 of the New Testament. Because sometimes you read what James says, and it's just like, James is like, like just, hey, do it. Do it. Just listen to me. Just do it. Just do what the Bible says. So between now and Thanksgiving, we are going to go verse by verse through the book of James. I want you to dig in, bring your journals with you, write your notes in the side. We're going to be so familiar with James, we're going to be calling him Jim by Thanksgiving time. We're going to be best friends. Okay, all right. Thank you for laughing. Thank you. James chapter 1, verse 1. Let's dive into it. In the book of James, James is going to take the first verse of the Bible and he's going to introduce himself. Now, the reason why that's important is that's the opposite of what happens today. If you were to write a letter to someone or send an email, you always put your salutations at the bottom. Your email signature with your name and your title and your contact information is always at the bottom of your email. But in the first century, in every biblical letter, it was the exact opposite. James starts with saying, hey, let me tell you who is writing this letter. So in James chapter 1, verse 1, we see James basically introducing himself. This is what would have been in James's email signature at the bottom of every email that he sends. James chapter 1, verse 1 says this, James, a servant of God and of the Lord Jesus Christ, to the 12 tribes in the dispersion, greetings. James, a servant of God and of the Lord Jesus Christ. I don't know when you read that, did you notice what was missing? James did not introduce himself as the brother of Jesus. Now, if I were Jesus' little brother, I'd lead with that every single time. Hey, my name's James, Jesus' brother. James, Jesus' favorite brother. James, the one that grew up with Jesus. James, top bunk, Jesus, bottom bunk. James, me and Jesus lived in the same house. James, same mom, different dad, long story. I'll tell you about it sometime. James. But that's not what he did. He didn't say brother of Jesus. Here's how James introduced himself. My name's James, and I work for the church. Like I'm just kind of all-purpose. I'm just a servant. Just one of the pastors here and do it all. And I'm giving a letter to the churches, the followers of Jesus that are scattered because of persecution. It's me, it's your boy, James. I'm your friend. I'm on the same team. Jesus follower. It's James. Now think about what James could have done if he'd have added more to that. 2 weeks ago, college football season started, and the game of the week was number 1 ranked Texas versus Ohio State. I think they were ranked 2nd or 3rd. And the quarterback for Texas was the Heisman Trophy front runner at the time. His name is Arch Manning, quarterback. Now, I don't know if that name sounds familiar. Quarterback with the last name of Manning. Arch Manning was named after his grandfather, Archie Manning, great college and professional NFL quarterback for the Saints. Arch also has 2 famous uncles. These uncles have won 4 Super Bowls and 6 league MVPs. Their names are Peyton Manning and Eli Manning. Hi, my name is Archie Manning. Arch Manning, quarterback, Arch Manning. Now, unfortunately for our boy Arch, he didn't do too hot on the first week. And they lost that game. And it's amazing that the commentators began to say maybe one of the reasons why he was so hyped was just because of his last name, because he really doesn't look that good. And there was a joke running around that Peyton said, yeah, he's an adopted nephew into the Manning family. Like, this isn't a real Manning. We adopted that dude. Like, he played like an adopted son on that first week. And now all of a sudden he's not the Heisman front runner anymore. They're not the team. But what was it? It was his name that got him all of that publicity and all of that press. That's what James could have done. James could have been like, yeah, James, related to Jesus. And everybody would have been like, oh, Jesus, this guy's just like Jesus. He knows Jesus. He's like Jesus. Like we should get on board with that. But James didn't do that. He said, James, servant of the church. I just do whatever it takes. And just here to help. Just here to be a blessing and to look like Jesus. I love you. I'm your friend. We're on the same team. That's how he introduces himself. Verse 2, he gets right into it. Now, if you thought that you were getting ready to get some Hobby Lobby printed shiplap Bible verse that you walk into your kitchen and you're like, live, laugh, love, right? If you thought that was coming from James, you got another thing coming, because verse 2 says this: count it all joy, my brothers, when you meet trials of various kinds. What's up, crew? My name's James. Trouble is coming your way. Heads up. Like, there's going to be some problems. And you're in it right now, and there's going to be even more in the future. Okay, so heads up. You got problems. They're coming. You got more problems than you got right now. They're coming. And he gives these instructions for when we meet trials. Count it all joy, my brothers, when we meet. I like that language, because sometimes that's how it feels like when we encounter trials, when we meet. Like, we're just minding our own business, walking through life, and it just seems like, hey, problem, name's Nathan. Sometimes, man, you can just get hit with trials out of nowhere in your life. You're just minding your own business, going through life, having a good season, and then all of a sudden, boom, trial comes. Boom, got another problem, another situation. Oftentimes in our lives, man, it's stuff that we didn't even do anything to earn. Now, I get it. There are some self-inflicted problems that we have, decisions that we made that have negative consequences. But some of these things, man, it's just collateral damage. It was just like you were in the wrong place at the wrong time, and something happened at work or with a family member, or something goes on in the world, and now it has a negative impact on you. And James says sometimes, man, you're going to meet problems in your life. You're going to meet these things. And then here's what happens when problems meet us where we're at. We begin to ask questions. Why am I going through this? Why this problem? Why me, God? Why at this time? Why in this area? Why is this? God, we begin to question and doubt. It can take a toll on us. God, I didn't deserve this. I didn't do anything to get this put on me. He says you're gonna face trials of various kinds. That word various means multicolored. It's actually the same word in the Septuagint in Joseph, the coat of many colors. That's the coat of a variety of colors. That's the same word. Here's what James says. You're going to have problems. They're going to be all shapes and sizes. You're going to have big problems. You're going to have small problems. You're going to have problems that last a day, and you have problems that last a lifetime. And here's what we like to do sometimes when we think about problems. We only think about the big stuff. I think, yeah, I'm going through a trial, like I lost my job, or I got a bad diagnosis, or I'm dealing with a death of a family member. But James says, no, there are various kinds and various sizes. Like, dude, just sometimes we find ourselves in a trial, and it's just a bad day. Like, I'm just having a rough day right now. And like, I'm facing that as a person. Or I'm going through a rough season, or I had a rough conversation with someone, or I've got a problem that I know I've got to handle, and it's just wearing on me. I'm anxious right now. And it might not seem like a big deal to you, but James still says, yeah, that's a trial. Like, it's a difficulty. It's a hardship. It's something that weighs on your heart and on your mind. It can be seasonal, not just the big things. And so James is going to give us some instructions. If you're taking notes, I want you to jot this down. You can write it here in the section of the side of your journal notebook if you want to. But here's what James teaches. As Christians, number one, in trials, the outside doesn't determine the inside. And this is countercultural, because nobody that you know that's not a Christian is going to understand this. That there's an opportunity that regardless of what happens on the outside, you can have peace on the inside. James says trials are going to happen. Bad things, hardships, difficulties, problems. But you can have trials on the outside and joy on the inside. You can be going through a hard time, but still experience peace in your heart and in your life. You're not denying that hardships exist. That's not what Christians are. Like, we don't walk around the world and be like, no, it's not that bad. No, dude, it's bad. Like, it's bad. There's some things in your life that are bad, and they're hard, and it's difficult. Like, acknowledge it. But James says we can consider them joy. The bad things on the outside don't have to impact the peace that we feel on the inside. We can experience that joy. John says it like this in 1 John 4, greater is he that lives in you than who lives in the world. There's something inside of you that is greater than what's happening on the outside of you. Consider it pure joy. Consider it all joy. You can have peace on the inside in the midst of turmoil on the outside. Everything in your life on the outside could be going wrong, but in you there is a steadfastness and a courage and a perseverance and a resolve. When James says, count it all joy when you face trials, that's James's way of saying, you can have a life where what happens on the outside does not affect you on the inside. Sound appealing? It's rare, I can promise you that. Because the rest of the world, when something bad happens out here, something bad happens in here. And fear and turmoil and anxiety rage both inside and outside. James says you can't control what happens to you, but you can control how you respond, both on the inside and the outside. Second thing that I learned from this is a loaded verse right here in James chapter 1, verse 2, is this. In trials, we can count it even when you're not feeling it. You can count it in your life. Count it all joy, my brothers, even when you're not feeling it. Now, count it is an accounting term. It means like if you were doing a financial spreadsheet, if you were doing a Google Doc, then everything that happens financially is either a withdrawal from your account or a deposit into your account. It's either red withdrawal or black deposits, credits and debits. And so like when you balance your checkbook or when you write down all of your purchases, the things that happen in your life, it's either coming in or going out. It's either a plus or a minus. And so when he says count it, he says, listen, you can categorize it however you want to. You can put this in one column or the other. Counting it is, and considering it is, even though it looks bad, it can be a joy. That's an attitude adjustment. It's not all joy. This is why James has to say you have to count it as joy, because here's the deal. It's not joy right now. So you have to take something that's not joy and put it in the category of joy. And it's going to sound weird and seem weird, but you can actually do this. Now, I wanted to give you an illustration this morning. I wanted to throw like an Excel spreadsheet on the back of the board right here, but I feel like that would, and like show you like credits and debits and deposits and all that kind of stuff, but I feel like that would be boring. And like David is a friend of mine. He's a CPA. He's an accountant. And what he likes to say is like, accountants aren't boring people. We just get excited about boring things. And so like they would get excited about a spreadsheet like that. And so, but instead of doing that, I want to illustrate the same point by using some ping pong balls. When James says there are going to be certain things that happen in your life that you have to consider are pure joy. Here's what the world says. The white ping pong ball, let's just say this symbolizes the good things that happen in your life. These are the blessings. These are the positive things. These are the things that you like. These are the things that fill you with happiness and pride and joy, and like life is going good. And the world says that when a good thing happens around you, then it makes you feel joyful. You categorize it. You put it in this container. Now, these orange balls, now these are hardships. These are problems. These are trials. These are people you want to slap. These are things that happen in your life that you're just like, oh, they're really testing me. I really don't want to do this. And when these things happen in your life, you can't control which one of these balls you get. But when these orange balls, orange for caution, when these orange balls happen, then we categorize it as like, I don't like this. This is frustrating. This is making me anxious. It's making me angry. I don't know why I'm having to do this. And that's how the world categorizes everything that happens around it. And so it's no big deal for good things that happen in your life to bring you great joy. But here's what James says. For followers of Jesus, we can take a trial and a hardship, and everybody else says this is terrible and this is hard and I don't want to do this and this has no purpose and God must not be in control and God must not have a plan and God must have fallen asleep at the wheel. But James says, here's what we do. We take the hardships and we count it as joy. Now, the world is spiritually OCD, and they're like, no, that orange one cannot go in the white one, right? Like some of you are having a panic. You were like, I'm getting ready to walk up there and throw this thing. And Jesus flipped the tables. I'm getting ready to flip the tables. Do not put that orange ball in that white one. That's what happens. We say, no, you can't. That's a hardship. That's a problem. You can't count that in that one. No, you can't put it in there. You have to take that out and do like everybody else and put it in there. And James says, no. See, because here's what you know. God can actually use these things to your benefit. He works together all things for the benefit. He works together. They're not good now. Let him work it. He works all things for the benefit. And as a follower of Jesus, we can say, yep, I've got a problem. I've got a trial. I've got a hardship. This is a really difficult time. But here's what I know, that God is producing something in me that is not currently there. And so that is actually a deposit. I will consider that pure joy. I'll be thankful for that. My outlook on life is totally different. And it doesn't matter. You can't control what happens, whether you draw a white or an orange day in your life, but you can control where you categorize it. And followers of Jesus are going to consistently take the hardships and the pains and the trials and the persecution and count it as joy. Everyone else wants to go here. Christians say, no, I understand God has a plan. God has a purpose. I can't see it right now, but the Bible says that I can count it as joy. Count it all joy. This is going to make your life incredibly different than the rest of culture. People are going to ask, why are you mixing the colors? It's not supposed to do that. Nobody else is doing that. You need to follow the rules. And that's your idea, is now count it all joy. No matter what happens, we count that as all joy. Having joy, even in the midst of trials, it's confusing, it's stressful, but here's the deal. I'm counting it. You might not be feeling it, but you are counting it. I'm not asking you what you feel. I'm asking you, how will you count it in your life? Believing that God has a plan, believing that God can use it, believing that it's not good yet, but that sometimes God brings joy and good even out of the difficulties in our life. And so if you believe that pain can actually lead to growth and maturity and increased faith and steadfastness and patience in your life, then it makes it very easy to take difficult times and say, yep, consider it joy. Count it as joy. Put that in the beneficial deposit category of my life, even though no one else is doing that. Verse 3, it says this, for you know that the testing of your faith produces steadfastness. And let steadfastness have its full effect, that you may be perfect and complete, lacking in nothing. See, James says the reason why you can count it all joy is because you know God is working in your life. He's not done yet. God is working. He's bringing it all together. There are things that you don't know, things that you are going to have to learn, that the only way that you're going to be able to learn is to go through it. That's the reason why James uses the word know. He says, for you know. How can you have joy in the trials? For you know. That word, K-N-O-W, means knowledge based on experience. James says, you didn't read this in a book. There are certain things in your life that you will not learn unless you experience it. You can't hear a story from someone. You can't learn the lesson from someone else. Like trials give us knowledge through experience. And sometimes I believe that the only way that you're going to learn, and some things in your life you will only learn as you go through the valley of the shadow of death. And we have to learn how to consider it all joy, categorize those things. That's what a trial can do for you in your life, help you to know and be confident in these things. Then he says the testing of our faith. Like, there you go. James makes it clear, you are going to be tested in your faith. Now, here's a question. Why do teachers give tests? The reason why we're tested is because essentially the student wants to be promoted. Like, I want to move to chapter 2, so I have to pass the test on chapter 1. I want to move to the third grade, from the fourth to the third to the fourth grade, so I have to pass the test at the end of the year. Now, every great teacher is going to tell you everything you need to know before the test and prepare you for the test. But ultimately, the student passing the test is not hinging on the teacher. It's the student. Like, we have to study. we have to determine that we're going to take this opportunity and count it as joy and know the things that we've called to test our faith. God is a great teacher, but we have to be willing to grow, willing to move forward. Trials in your life are inevitable. Growth is optional. Everybody has problems. You got to make the decision to grow from them. You got to make the decision to mature from them. The last point I want to share with you is this. James kind of talks about it in these verses 3 and 4. As a Christian, in trials, here's the command: don't be a dropout. Like don't be a dropout. What happens sometimes in our trials? Verse 4 says, and let steadfastness go to its full effect. Let it go all the way to the end. Don't put the cake in the oven and it's supposed to bake for 30 minutes and you get hungry at 20 and you take it out and you get upset because when you cut it, it's all soupy in the middle. You didn't let it go. You got to let him cook. Like those trials in your life, like don't quit on it early. Don't take it off. Well, I've waited 20 minutes, but like let me take it off. You'll ruin the whole thing. Like it'd be a shame for you to make a recipe and put it together and put it in the oven and watch it for 20 minutes only to take it out early and the whole thing go south. James says, man, let it produce something in your life. Let it go all the way. God will oftentimes, speaking of ovens, God will test you with a closed door before he trusts you with an open door. So he's going to test you, man. The door's closed. You got to let it cook. You got to let it come to completion. The question is, man, will you jerk the door open too fast? Because the door's closed and you got to wait. So before God trusts you with an open door, he's going to test you with a closed door. Will you have the steadfastness? Will you have the perseverance? James says trials produce steadfastness. That word steadfastness means the ability to stick with God no matter what. James wants you to be mature. He's like, hey man, I want to make sure that you stick with God no matter what happens. And here's what I've learned as a result of following Jesus. If you really want to know if you are going to stick with God no matter what, God will let you experience some no matter what. Like he will. That'll be your test. He's like, all right, you want to see if it's real? You want to know if the recipe's right? You want to know? Well, we'll send some trials so that you can make the decision. Will I consider it all joy? Will I trust the Lord? Will I understand that he's working things? Will I trust the process? Will I let it bake? Or will I open up the door too soon? Will I have the wrong attitude or the outlook on it? Some translations instead of steadfastness will read patience. And it's the same thought. You know, James wants to know, will you be patient? Or when trials and hardship comes, will you pull the plug? Will you quit? Will you walk away? Will you curse God? Will you drop your faith? Will you take matters into your own hands and say, God, you don't know what you're doing. Obviously, you're not working fast enough. Let me take it out of your hands. What will you do? Will you have the patience to handle trials? Man, that's a game changer. I believe one of the most powerful things that you can do as a follower of Jesus to help other people find and follow Jesus is to live out these first few verses of James chapter 1, verses 2. Because there's going to be things people in your life are going to see. This is what you have right now. This is what you're dealing with. Hardships, pain, and problems. And they're going to watch what you do with it. And if you're just like everybody else, then your faith is useless. People don't want what everybody else has. They're looking for something better. They're looking for something different. But man, you take those hardships and you say, I'm going to learn how to trust God and follow God. And I'm not going to let the outside impact the inside. And even though I don't feel it, I'm going to count it. That'll get somebody's attention. Like that will beg some questions from some people and ask you who this Jesus is and what he's all about. Anybody can stick with God on the top of the mountain. The question is, will you stick with God in the bottom of the valley? Count it all joy, my brothers, when you face trials of many kinds. I've been through seasons like this in my life that I go through a hardship, and I'll say something like this: I wouldn't want to do that again, but I wouldn't trade it for anything. I wouldn't wish this on my worst enemy, But now that I'm on the other side of it, I see what God taught me, and I see what God did, and I saw how my faith in him increased, man. Anytime you have trials, it gives us an opportunity. Are we going to lean in to God? Are we going to trust God? Is it going to amplify our faith in God, or will it all come crashing down like a house of cards? Maturity is the goal for James. I want you to be a mature follower of Christ. Reading the Bible makes you smarter. Doing what it says makes you obedient. But facing trials with great joy makes you mature. And that's what James is going after. Hey, I told you at the beginning that James was not the biggest fan of Jesus growing up. In fact, all of Jesus' life and ministry here on earth, James did not believe in his older brother. But something happened. And Paul actually tells us what that something is in the book of 1 Corinthians. Chapter 15, he said this: Christ died for our sins, just as the scripture said. He was buried, and he was raised from the dead on the third day, just as the scripture said. Jesus was seen by Peter and then by the 12. After that, he was seen by more than 500 of his followers at one time, most of whom are still alive, though some have died. Verse 7, then Jesus was seen by James. And that was the day when James saw his half-brother risen from the grave. He saw him crucified, saw him get put in the grave, saw him raised. He said, he's exactly who he said he was. And on that day, James's life changed. And I believe, it's my prayer for you over these next few months, that verse 7 would be your story, that you saw Jesus. And I believe that'll change your life, just like it's changed mine, and just like it changed James. You will not be the same person when you see Jesus for who he really is and encounter him in a real way. It changed James's life. That's secrets out. I'm praying that happens in so many people's lives over these next few months as we get the full truth from the half-brother of Jesus. God, would you help us to take the words of a former skeptic and hater, somebody that just flat out looked at you, Jesus, and said, I don't believe you. Don't believe you. Don't believe you're right. Don't believe you're true. Don't believe the miracles. Don't believe the sermons. And in one radical encounter, his life was changed. God, I pray that you would do that in the lives of people in this room, listening online over these next few weeks, that they would see you for who you really are. And God, would you give us the wisdom to know what to do with the words that we have just heard? Show us how to count it all joy when it's raging on the outside, that we can have peace and joy on the inside because of your Son, Jesus. I ask and pray these things in his name.